Hello and welcome to another episode of the DTF Podcast here on the Field of 68 Media Network. My name is Rob Doster. I have John Fanta with me. I have T.O. with me, who was once again incredibly late for the podcast because he had to go get a workout in. This guy's over here, the overachiever, always trying to find a way. What were you playing, basketball today, T.O.?
I was on the elliptical. I've been trying to jog, but my neck hurts whenever I jog, so I'm just doing elliptical for days.
Outside jogging or treadmill jogging?
Treadmill jogging really hurts. Outside, it's piss pouring rain outside, so I'm not doing that today.
Ooh.
Yeah, I can't do the treadmill anymore. I used to love the treadmill. I can't do it anymore. No,
Fair enough. Yeah, it hurts your neck. However, after your workout, these legendary snacks, dude, I need an NIL deal like I've never needed one.
What are they?
Dude, they like nothing. 5 net carbs, 20 grams of protein. Don't fire me up. I can eat this stuff. I got a sweet tooth too. I'm telling you, these things are elite. I need a deal. Those things are awesome.
Give my man an NIL deal with legendary snacks. Fanta, it was a wild week in college basketball, a wild weekend. Kansas is coming off of their second straight loss, a number one team in the country for just the fifth time in the AP poll era, lost back-to-back games in the same week to Missouri and to Creighton, both of them against unranked teams. Purdue beats Maryland, and the top of the Big Ten looks crazy, man. Michigan might win it. Michigan State might win it. T.O., your Michigan State take has aged like fine wine. Marquette beat Wisconsin. Tennessee looks like the new number one. UConn might be back to being back. But first, we got to talk about the Kentucky Wildcats, and it's twofold here, guys. Kentucky and Gonzaga played one of the most exciting games of the season. Top 10 battle that goes to overtime. Wildcats win it. And that's coming off of a game where they go on the road to Clemson and are one of the two teams that lose in the ACC-SEC challenge. T.O., we're going to let you talk your shit about your Clemson Tigers here in just a minute.
I talked a lot of shit about them last night. Do I need to talk about them again?
I know you did. We'll let you go, man, because it looks – I think that they're the second best team in the ACC, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But before we do, Fanta, wild weekend. Kentucky wins a wild game. This is the one thing I will say, Fanta, I'm going to tee you up on this. I feel like there have been a lot of like high-profile games that we've had this year, and I think every single one of them have delivered in terms of, okay, this has been good theater, it's been good basketball, it's been fun to watch, it's been entertaining. I feel like we've had a lot of really, really good big games, and you don't always get that in this sport.
The health of college basketball is in a very strong place.
100%.
That's what you could take from the first 5 weeks of the season. It feels like we've seen about 10 to 12 weeks worth of great games in just the first 5 weeks. That bodes very well. And we haven't even gone to the biggest day of the season thus far, which is this Saturday. This Saturday is a celebration of college basketball, and college football is in our rearview mirror at least for a week. This is Saturday night was as wild of a turn in a game that I can remember covering this sport. Might sound bold, but when you consider the brand who did it, so Kentucky matches their largest halftime come-from-behind win in the 121-year history of Kentucky basketball. Kentucky's been playing basketball for 121 years. Saturday night's comeback doesn't come around every day. In fact, it didn't come around under John Calipari throughout his tenure.
Once. Didn't go. What was he, 0-9 when he was down 16 at halftime? Right. I saw that stat somewhere.
Not a single time. Not a single
0-6.
So for Mark Pope to not have Lamont Butler and then to watch Kirk Kriisa go down with an injury in the second half, there's a morale thing there. Okay, we're shorthanded. We couldn't win. We got a good excuse for the committee. We got good excuses here. We'll take our L and move on. The adjustments that he made at halftime defensively and how they guarded Gonzaga, and then in the shot creation that they got off those stops was really, really impressive. That second half was a clinic as much as Gonzaga's was a first half clinic, because Gonzaga in the first half, guys, looked like the best team in the country. They looked like they did against Baylor. They moved the ball. They were rolling. I was getting texts from people around UConn who have them at the Garden on Saturday, and they're like, well, we better beat Texas tomorrow because, man, that looks like an uphill battle. Then the second half, things sort of unraveled for Gonzaga, but Kentucky wins this game. And you know what impresses me the most? We walked into this season saying, who's going to be the alpha for this Kentucky team? Who's going to be the guy to step up? And I asked the Kentucky staff this over the summer when I was out there for TBT. I said, so who's the guy? And they said, honestly, and this might sound cliche or like BS, we feel like we could play through a couple of guys. We feel like we could play through Andrew Carr some. We feel like Otega Oweh could be played through some. And Jackson Robinson can be that dude. Didn't see it against Duke. Thought that the bright lights were too bright. On Saturday night, 18 points, 5 assists, not a single turnover for Jackson Robinson. That's an efficient line. And it's a massive moment for Kentucky and their basketball program. Because when you make the Mark Pope hire, there are skeptics. There are people excited, but you don't know what a hire is until results start to come in. In the first 5 weeks of the season, they have defeated Duke, a team that has the best phenom in college basketball, and Gonzaga, a team that returned 81% of their scoring. They've beaten both types of heavyweights, and if you're a member of Big Blue Nation, you are still celebrating, and you are as hopeful as you've been about your future in a very long time.
Theo?
I love every bit of that. And the fact that they held Gonzaga to nothing shooting from three. Like Nolan Hickman, 1 of 7. You got to be able to guard. And you know, at the beginning of the season, I caught some hell. I think I picked Kentucky third, behind second. And I put Alabama, Kentucky, Tennessee. And I was catching hell, but I was like, you know what? They don't have that one guy that's just going to jump out and be him. But they have a bunch of different players that they're going to be able to keep facilitating offense. It's a pick 'em on a given night whenever you play Kentucky. So you know, even though he didn't shoot the ball well, Kobe Bryant's had moments this year where you're like, man, that guy, he doesn't miss. Now, he didn't play well against Gonzaga, but you get what I'm saying. Same goes for some of these other guys. Jackson Robinson, Andrew Carr, I thought was an underrated get because he's so smart. Like, he was just a smart player at Wake Forest. He goes and plays for Pope, different offense. He's been really good. You know, as far as the game goes, like, I'm not all that worried about Gonzaga. I feel like they're going to be just fine. Not worried at all. It's going to be a battle against UConn. I think that's going to be a really fun game to watch. I would actually lean a little bit Gonzaga's way because I feel like they have so many offensive options. But UConn playing a lot better. We're talking about Kentucky right now. Still, I love what you said, John. So many different guys. Otega Oweh is better offensively than I think a lot of people, including myself, gave them credit for. They're a problem. They're going to be good, and they're going to be fun to watch all season long. And it's everything that Calipari wasn't in terms of offense, older guys. Like, I mean, not good or bad, John. Not good or bad. Just elongated offense. They're running a lot of different systems, older players, and they're grinding the clock down to where Cal was like, I have the best players on the floor. I'm going to let them go. So it's very different. It's very exciting. It's new. It's refreshing. Kentucky fans should be happy because Kentucky's really good. Elite 8 potential for me.
It's conducive to winning.
Conducive to winning. Absolutely.
Sport. That was winning basketball, Rob. It really was.
Yeah, I think you got to give a lot of credit to Jackson Robinson there. I remember after the Duke game, the one question that I had was, okay, do you have a guy that you can go to at the end of the game? Against Duke, it was Andrew Carr. I'm always a little worried if your go-to guy is a big guy, right? Because you have to have someone that can actually go and get him the ball. I thought Jackson Robinson was really good, especially down the stretch. I don't love that there are so many big possessions that Kentucky has that ends with Otega Oweh taking open spot up threes. That was one of the problems that they had down the stretch against Clemson. But, you know, it's a good team. It's a balanced team. They didn't even have their starting point guard, Lamont Butler. They're going to be without their backup point guard, Kirk Kriisa, for at least 3 weeks after surgery on a Jones fracture in his foot. But this is a really, really, really good Kentucky team that has as high of a floor as anybody. Before we get into the Clemson side of this, I do want to ask you guys, how do you see the top of the SEC kind of shaking out now? Tio, we'll go to you first on this one. Is it Auburn? Are they the best team? Is it Kentucky? Are they the best team? Tennessee? There's a very real chance that we look up today when we're recording this before the AP poll drops. We might look up and the top 3 teams in the country might be all from the SEC. And none of them will include Alabama. Like, the top of this league is just absolutely patently absurd.
Patently absurd. And you look up and down the league, and we made this point last week, like, no bad losses. I mean, Vanderbilt went down to TCU and won down there. Like, silly. The entire league is silly. Right now, I would put Tennessee at the top because their offense is humming. Chaz Lanier, that was a great call by you, Fant. I had my doubts because I thought that Dalton Connect was going to be was so good with the ball in his hands. Chaz Lanier is doing everything inside of 2 dribbles, And like it almost helps those other guys more.
I will
right?
never bet against Rick Barnes.
Say that again.
I will never. Not that you were betting against him, but
No.
if I could invest in a coach and a program, it's Rick Barnes in Tennessee. I just know the take's probably going to age at least okay.
That's right. That's right. And you said Chaz was going to be this big time scorer, and I was a little bit skeptical because I didn't think he was kind of the creator that Dalton Connect is, and he's not. However, because he does everything within 2 dribbles and he's still efficient and he still pops the ball around, it's not limiting some of those other guys. I think Jordan Gainey's been good. I think Zakai Ziegler's found more opportunities. Like their offense is moving better. The ball is popping around, and then their defense never went anywhere. So I'm going Rocky top number 1 right now. Auburn number 2, and it's nothing. It might as well be 1A and 1B because like those dudes have been so good. Both teams. I mean, the backcourt for Auburn was the question mark, but they're huge. They're switchable and they can hit shots, and they have a bunch of spurtable dudes. I think that's 1A, 1B. I would go Tennessee. I would give them the edge right now. I mean, guys, Kentucky, Florida has been great. They're 9-0. Absurd. There's only one team with more than 2 losses in the entire league, and that's South Carolina. And if they don't drop one on opening night to North Florida, there are no bad losses in this conference. Like it's insane. It reminds me of when the Big East was the old Big East, what was it, 2010 or something, where there was like 13,
10, 11.
Yeah, 10, 11, where it was like 11 bids. Like SEC might get 11 bids. They might get 12.
Yeah.
Like it is ridiculous how good it's been so far.
That's a great point because it's something that I want to, and I'll answer your question, Rob. But when you've got 36 at-large bids to the NCAA tournament, take out the 3 conference champions from the SEC, the Big 12, and the Big 10, right? So then you got 36. Let's just say there's 11 others from the SEC. Let's just say there's 10 from the Big 12, and there's 9 from the Big 10. I mean, you're potentially looking at 30 of your 36 at-larges being from the Big 12, the Big 10, and the SEC. I mean, that's a numbers game then. Then you're talking about like 6 or 7 at-larges that are going to be available between, the ACC, the Big East,
A10.
and I guess the WCC and the A10, and then the Mountain West.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you also could have a couple of teams in these leagues just, the bottom falls out and unexpected things happen, injuries happen. But the point is, like, you're going to get around 27 to 30 bids between those 3 conferences. So I haven't been for tournament expansion, but when I think about the numbers game a little bit, it does make me question, is 72 a more correct way? Just by virtue of it's tough. I have not been about it before, but it's the reason why I say it is sometimes with some of these leagues that have these 16 or 18 teams, it's hard to make out who's who by the time March rolls around because they're going to beat up each other, but their metrics were so good, they sort of beat the system.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But SEC,
Big
Auburn,
12 dominated that last year.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Auburn's the best team. They still are. Auburn has a top 2 player in the sport in Janai Broome. The other player is Cam Jones at Marquette. And they've got tough shot makers, and I still was impressed with them at Cameron Indoor Stadium. After Auburn, so I ranked Tennessee number 1, but I'm talking about winning the national championship. After Auburn, I'm putting Alabama still number 2 in that race. I still really think highly of the Crimson Tide. Don't fault the team for playing an insane schedule. And Mark Sears is still absolutely fantastic. And, they were in a great game with Oregon. I want to see certain complementary pieces come together. Young blood, I want to see what he brings to the table. But I just trust Nate Oates in the tournament quite a bit. And then now it's a debate. I also think Jimmy Dykes said this over the weekend. I'm really intrigued to see Florida play a big game, Rob.
Yeah.
Because I think Florida, we can't give a proper evaluation yet. But Jimmy Dykes, who I think is outstanding. We don't do podcast guests very often. I'd love to get him on to like a special edition because the SEC.
Where would you be seated on Jimmy's jet?
What's that?
Where would you be seated on Jimmy's jet? Would you be first class?
Not next to the Auburn players. So for me,
well done.
So for me, like Walter Clayton, Will Richard, that team talent wise, Jimmy said over the weekend that he thinks Florida's as good as the other teams. Tio, if that's the case, this could be the best season by a conference in the history of college basketball.
Yeah.
In their non-conference, they have the best winning percentage at 87% by a conference since 1996. I was a year old.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's
I was 8.
ridiculous. It's ridiculous the top of that league.
You were 8, but did you have a girlfriend?
No, but Damon does. Dude, hey, look. If you dude, Damon has more swag you wouldn't even want to know right now. He went to his girlfriend's birthday party. It was a full-blown situation. I was getting pictures and he was all smitten. We're not talking about Damon. We're talking about Florida. Hey, look.
You
Florida.
said your son was smitten.
He's smitten.
I don't even know what that means.
He's head over here for this girl. Her parents are astrophysicists at Clemson. There's no conversation going on at the dinner table. I'm not smart enough. I am not smart enough to keep up with these people unless they want to talk about the intricacies of the 5-out Zoom offense.
Hey.
I've got nothing for them. Hey, but here, you know what's crazy?
Hey, hold on.
I'm not mad at.
You can't get two more polar opposites than a family whose parents are the astrophysicists and then the Oglesbys.
Yeah.
I'm just imagining what that dinner would be like at a wedding.
If nothing else, it'd be fun. I can promise you that. Hey, look, so it's almost not Florida's fault that they hadn't played big games. Like, I thought Wake Forest would be better than they have been so far. Like, they haven't been terrible, no horrible losses. But, like, it's not really Florida's fault. They played Virginia, who has been Virginia. Next two non-cons are going to be important for Florida. They got Arizona State, who's been better than everybody thought.
Right.
And then they have North Carolina in a semi-away game in Charlotte. They get both of those. Like, just go ahead and write it off. I want to give the SEC 12 bids because, like, it's insane what the conference has been able to do. There's going to be no quad 3 opportunities in the league. Think about that. It's all going to be quad 1 and quad 2 games.
Yeah, right now, according to Ken Palm, every road game would be a quad 1 win.
Wow,
that's crazy.
On the road.
Rob,
hey, and here's the deal. Here's the deal with that, guys. Like, I have no more arguments with the quad system. We've all figured it the hell out now. It is only your fault if your quad system sucks in their conference. We have figured out what works, what doesn't work. We figured it out. SEC. They have earned the right to make every freaking game important in conference play. And they've also earned the right for none of those losses to be bad losses because we figured this out. Every conference is privy to this information now. Now the SEC is taking advantage.
Rob, it's pretty interesting, Rob. Arkansas could finish in like the bottom 5 of this league.
Yeah. Yeah. My prediction would be that they finish somewhere in the bottom half of this. Like, I don't think that they're a top half team in this league. I mean, let's roll through it, all right? I think Auburn's still the best team in college basketball. I think that they have the highest ceiling of anybody in college basketball. I think that Tennessee is right there with them. Like, it's 1A, 1B. I think Alabama has, like, on any given night, if Alabama gets hot, they could beat literally any of those teams. They could beat them all by 15 if they wanted to. I'm buying on Florida. I'm hesitant to go all in on Florida just because we haven't seen it yet.
Yep.
And to be frank, if they beat Arizona State and they beat North Carolina, I'm going to say the same thing because Arizona State is Arizona State, and I got to see, and I just don't trust North Carolina. Kentucky is awesome
right now.
Like, the only red flag on Kentucky right now is that they get off to some slow starts and they had to come back to beat Duke and Gonzaga, which whatever, and they lost at Clemson, which is probably like a top 20, top 25 kind of a team. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Texas A&M, really good. Mississippi State, really good. Ole Miss, they might be like top 20 good in America this year. Texas, like that, they got talent. I don't know if they got anything else, but they got talent. Georgia's been good. Oklahoma's undefeated. Missouri just spanked Kansas in Kansas City, right? Like, Vanderbilt, they're pretty good. There's a very real world where with this team, John Calipari finishes like 13th in the SEC and goes 6-12 and is on the bubble when it comes to Selection Sunday.
Yeah.
That's what we could be talking about right here with the SEC. It's crazy how good and how deep this conference is.
Everybody's going to be like, well, SEC this, they did this, and we'll just wait till the end of the year. No. Like, this isn't the same situation. Last year, they lost the SEC ACC challenge. They lost it. The ACC won. So, like, I thought the complaining was warranted. This year, miss me. Like, and I'm like, I'm the guy who's, dude, I've back the ACC like crazy. I hadn't been there this year, and I got nothing to stand on. Outside of Clemson and Duke, I got nothing to stand on right now. The SEC has earned this praise, and it's not like remotely an argument, and people are starting to realize that.
All right, we'll talk a little bit about Kansas and what's happened to them, and I'm going to let T.O. say what he's got to say about his Clemson Tigers, who are sitting here 9-1, second best team in the ACC. We'll find out coming up after this. If you haven't heard by now, we have partnered with BetMGM for the season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets. Go download the BetMGM app and use the code FIELD today. All right, T.O. Clemson.
Boom.
9-1 on the season.
Yeah,
they just beat Kentucky at home. They went on the road and beat Miami, which is not really saying all that much. But
yeah, potential trap game, though.
Yeah, a road game, league game. I'm not going to complain about that, right? They have a nice win over San Francisco on a neutral. They have a nice win over a Penn State team that suddenly looks really good on a neutral court. Their only loss comes at Boise State, flying across the country on a Sunday, playing in Boise. That's no easy task going to Boise. How good is Clemson? Like, let me phrase it like this. I think that it's pretty clear that they're the second best team in the ACC as of today. Does this team have a real chance to be able to push Duke and maybe win an ACC regular season championship?
Yeah, it's absolutely within the realm of possibility because they're going to be consistent on the defensive end of the floor. Fifth in the country defensively, guys. Mm-hmm. And let me put it this way. Like, they have some longer bodies. Sure. This isn't Duke length. This isn't like that same type of thing, but they're in freaking position every time. And in some of these additions, like Jaden Zachary is that dude. I can't emphasize to you how impressive he is defensively. You should have seen what he did to Devontae Blanton at Eastern Kentucky. And I understand it was Eastern Kentucky, but he kept doing it against other people too. He's done it against everybody. He's the best guard defender in the ACC. And I'm not sure it's really close. Then they have Chase Hunter, who's been awesome. And Ian Shefflin is leading college basketball in rebounding at over 12 a game. That's happening.
Amazing.
It's amazing. Chauncey Wiggins against Kentucky stepped up. We finally saw glimpses of like, oh, man, this guy could be that good. He's 6'10". He could put the ball on the floor. He could score some. That's great. Let's see some more of that. But the guy I keep coming back to, and I didn't see this whenever I thought he was a good player, good addition. You could run some offense through him. The transfer from Cincinnati, Victor Lockett. Victor. He's perpetually exhausted. Looks exhausted all the time. He's got resting, I'm exhausted face. That's what he has. That being said, if he's a quality third, fourth option on a given night and is able to knock down shots and he's hitting skip passes, like Clemson's a problem. And they are tough to defend. They've got guys coming off the bench that are going to be able to contribute. I don't see – here's where I think they could push Duke. I think they're going to be so freaking consistent on the defensive end of the floor, and I feel like they know where they're going to get their shots, and there's enough individual talent there to where it could really – they could win the regular season if Duke slips up and has some freshman moments in January.
Yeah, Fanna, real quick, the two guys that we knew what Chase Hunter was going to be, right? And if I'm being totally transparent, I thought Chase Hunter would be a little bit better this year. I feel like he's had a slow start.
Oh, he's been great.
Well, I was kind of thinking like this is sneaky ACC player of the year kind of a guy, and he's been good, but I don't think he's been. Maybe my expectations were just.
I think here's the thing with Chase. Like you're gonna have to give some grace there. He's gonna be great in moments, but his numbers aren't gonna be super loud because of the way they run stuff. Mm-hmm. You look at like he's shooting 39% from three, 54 from two, and 83 from the line. And he's not turning it over. He's playing fantastic defense. But if you're going to think like a Clemson point guard is going to average 20 points, 5 and 5, like it's just not going to happen. Like they let the ball move too much.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. Ian Shefflin, right? We talked about this, fan. He was the best player on the floor against Kentucky, and he went 4 for 20 from the floor against Kentucky. Chauncey Wiggins and Jaden Zachary were the two, though. Like they've been. Chauncey Wiggins has a little bit of like there's a level of pop there that length and athleticism that is not exactly what you expect to see when you watch Clemson play. And then I did not expect.
Whoa. What does that mean?
You know what it means. Like he's got like game changing. Like, whoa, where did that come from? I would think about that with the Oliver Purnell Clemson teams, not so much the Brad Brunell.
Okay, fair point.
And then Jaden Zachary, like I didn't know what to expect from him coming in, but he's like the perfect fifth starter on a roster. Like he guards, he makes the right pass, he can get to the basket and score. I think he had like 3 or 4 plays in the last 6 minutes when Kentucky was making a run down the stretch where it was just like, okay, that's the right thing. Okay, look at that play. Okay, he got to stop right there. Took a like that dude is just the perfect like fifth guy role player.
But they're fifth in KenPom defense. They're guarding at a very high level. And
they're going to continue guarding.
They disconnected Kentucky's offense. They did a terrific job of making Kentucky play hero ball and have disjointed possessions. On the offensive end of the floor, you're exactly right. I mean, this is a team that look, they don't have to over-rely on any one piece. And Chauncey Wiggins was able to step up and deliver. Jaden Zachary made some very difficult shots. Ian Shefflin right now has the best motor in college basketball.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
He never stops. He never stops, and he never stops. Brad Brownell winning in the tournament breeds confidence into your program. And what they were able to do last year in making history and going to the Elite Eight, there's a carryover effect from that, or there's a hangover effect from it. For Clemson, it's been the former. When you build a standard and you bring back pieces from that standard, in today's college basketball, it is the best formula for your program. The Clemson Tigers have become a program that the ACC can, one, be proud of as a top-tier team, and number two, a program that's not going to slow down because they've got enough dollars. Dabo Swinney making the college football playoff, very good for Clemson.
How about that, man? How about that?
Yeah, it's a good time to be a Tiger right now.
Hey, all those bragging rights. Hey, all those bragging rights I was hearing from South Carolina fans. Enjoy that Cheez-It Bowl.
Let them know, T.O. Let them know.
Wow.
T.O., but you got to be honest with us, man. You got to be honest. Maybe the greatest field goal in the history of college football, 56 yards, college football playoff on the line, ACC championship on the line, Clemson Tigers, your school, your football team. Where were you in the moment? Talk to me about how you reacted live when you watched that field goal go through the uprights. Where were you? What were you doing?
I rolled over because I was drooling on my pillow. I fell asleep. It was too late for me. It was too late for me. I saw it the next morning, fired up. However, you guys saw the college football playoff? You saw it? You saw it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, of course.
Horns down, baby.
Wild.
You let them know, T.O. Hey, let me ask you this. If Tennessee, let's just say Tennessee and Clemson end up playing at some point, right?
Clemson.
No doubt? No questions?
No doubt. I got 2 degrees from Clemson. Didn't pay much. No doubt.
Trevor Valise says, what the hell is wrong with the Cheez-It Bowl? Illinois is playing South Carolina. Go Illini.
Where is the Cheez-It Bowl?
I don't know, but
that's the problem. I don't know where the hell it is.
Trevor also texted me and said that Damon Oglesby has more Riz than I do, meaning him.
It's a fact.
Mm-hmm.
Doster knows. Doster knows.
He does. Your T.O. Good. All I'll say is good luck, man. All I'll say is good luck.
But can I Clemson, the fact that we're saying this right now about Clemson, and when you look at the ACC, we thought that Miami would have a bounce back year. We thought Syracuse might be on the rise. Pitt, I still like enough. They got bullied down at Mississippi State.
Yeah.
Mississippi State is Houston light.
Hey, no one is talking anywhere near enough about Josh Hubbard in the year that he is.
We just wax poetic about the SEC. Anyway, so Pitt.
So that I
can only do so much.
No, I'm not trying to bury the I'm not trying to bury the ACC. I'm just looking at it from the standpoint of the ACC really needed Clemson to beat Kentucky in the worst way. And when you look at this league right now, I just, to me, one, if you're the ACC, you got to be, if you're Jim Phillips and you're the people that are at the top of that league, you got to be talking and having real dialogue with the likes of Virginia and Miami, and even
Virginia
Florida
Tech.
State and Virginia Tech. But you're going to have some coaching changes in that league.
Yeah.
Virginia is going to happen. I think there's others that are coming, whether it be retirement or moving on. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But I think the biggest thing for me right now, Rob, and I think this is a big storyline in college basketball. Kansas, Duke, Kentucky. What the heck is going on in Chapel Hill? I am alarmed at North Carolina's roster. Now, Clemson's roster is better than North Carolina's. I'm talking roster, guys.
Yeah, they missed on
front court. Is rough.
Yeah, here's what I'll say is that they missed on getting a couple of big guys that they had an opportunity to get. I think Amore came down to Alabama or North Carolina. Coleman Hawkins considered North Carolina and then went to Kansas State. And I don't know specifically.
I don't know if that one would have made a huge difference. I think the Amore one was a big one.
With that big Cliff in there would have made a really big difference. The same reason he's making a really big difference for Alabama on the defensive end of the floor. If I'm North Carolina at this point and I'm Hubert Davis, I'm just saying forget it, man. I'm going as small as I possibly can. RJ Davis, Elliot Cadeau, Seth Trimble, Ian Jackson, Drake Powell. We're going to try to win games 120 to 115. Like, I don't think that you're going to be able to get stops there. They might not be able to get a single stop, but press, do something different. It's not working with the big guys that they have. And to me, it's a criticism of the roster building and missing out on guys in the portal. But I also like
they're screwed, man. Like you also, I love your point. Like, hey, let's try to force some turnovers. Let's just go super small. The problem with that, and I was thinking about this too after I got off with Hansborough, like they're trying to press some. They'll try to three-quarter court you a little bit. The problem is RJ and Elliot Cadeau are so small. Opposing guards just see over the top. It's really not a big deal to deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, then do something like this. I don't even know if it would work, but just throw like Seth Trimble and Ian Jackson at the top of the press and go 2-2-1 and put the RJ and Elliot Cadeau in the middle and let them kind of play free safety and try to pick off passes. I don't know.
Yeah.
You got to do something. Like, it ain't working right now. Like, what they have set up, it's not working because you don't have that 5 spot. And them
dudes can score though.
It is a concern.
Them dudes can score. Here's another thing. RJ Davis, his volume is so high and his percentages are so low right now. You got to find ways to get him easier shots because we know how good he is. He's taking a lot of hard shots. So
Seth Trimble's been their most efficient player.
Yep.
He's a
really good player.
Yeah, he's probably been their best player. Duke, I just want to ask real quick because they did go on the road and they beat Louisville after being down by 14 points in the first half. And they did beat Auburn at home, one of 2 wins that the ACC was able to get in the ACC SEC Challenge. I think we have to talk about them beating Auburn and kind of the statement that it made, because we've seen Duke get close a couple times, guys. We saw they were a possession away from beating Kansas. They were a couple of possessions away from, like, they hit one open 3 in those last 4 minutes in the Champions Classic, and they find a way to be able to beat Kentucky there. Like, I think that we are really close to being in a situation where, like, the Duke hype train is out of control. And I don't think people have realized just how good this team has a chance to be. They don't play another team right now. Let me take that back. Clemson and Illinois are the only 2 teams that they play right now that are ranked inside the top 30 on KenPom as of today.
Why is that game scheduled there in February 22nd? Why is that?
They had a weekend off and they wanted to try to get to New York, and they weren't able to get to New York at the start of the calendar. Duke always wants to play a game in New York City at Madison Square Garden.
I'm not mad at that. Well, I'm going back to another point. I'm not mad at that scheduling decision. I actually really like it. Is Fox doing that game?
Power of sheer.
Mm-hmm.
Duke and Duke and Illinois. By the way, best New York City weekend in February of college basketball that I can remember. I'm in February. Saturday night, Cooper Flag and Duke taking on Illinois at the Garden at 8 o'clock. Just get a hotel room by the Garden and come right back for noon the next day for Rick Pitino and St. John's meeting Dan Hurley in Connecticut.
That'll be fun.
I mean, forget it. Forget it with the fans. Forget it with the frivolity there. Here's the thing with Duke. last night was as big of a statement for me as the win over Auburn. And you might be saying, how could you ever say that? Here's why. Did you watch college basketball this past week? Did you see how teams fared on the road? It was ugly.
Yep.
Ask Penn State. Ask Purdue how they fared at Penn State. Ask Illinois, who had it wrapped against Northwestern, how things went in Evanston for them. Ask Kansas how things went on the road for the Jayhawks. Winning on the road, the Big 12, Big East battle, the home team won every game but one.
Mm-hmm.
Winning on the road in this sport is really, really, really difficult. And Duke has Cooper Flagg sit down with 10 minutes and change on the clock. It's a close game. They proceed to go on an 18-2 run.
Yeah, they did.
Concanipple hits shots. Big game changer from the previous games. Tyrese Proctor has become a terrific guard who's more consistent and understanding of his role. And to me,
Malik Brown.
That's exactly it.
He is so important to what they do.
Every team needs a guy who is this junkyard dog type of fixture. Back when, I'll give a Big East comp here for just a moment. Forgive me, but it's because I went to Seton Hall. When Seton Hall won the Big East championship in 2016, in that wild recruiting class with Whitehead, Carrington, and Delgado, they had a kid named Ishmael Sanogo who just turned the water off. It's Malik Brown turns the water off of whoever he guards. I love him. I'm going to use a phrase from a coach. He's an unmade bed guy. He's a guy who, when he gets out of his bed, it's unmade. It looks, kind of looks like who is this guy? Like what's his game all about? But then if you laid down in that bed, you would realize how comfy it is. Malik Brown is who I want on my team. He just gets out of bed and he plays, man. That guy's a hooper.
I thought that where you were going to go with that was Malik Brown is who I want in my bed. And I was like, man, no, slow down here, man. Flynn, I don't know where you're going with this.
Hey, it wasn't that, Rob. It wasn't that. Don't make it about that.
Hey, I will say this.
I'm a bed guy. You know what? Devin
Oh
Carter.
no, I get. Trust me.
He just kind of shows up and plays. Like he just. I love.
And you know what the best part about it is?
The game. T.O. Malik Brown plays the game the right way.
Yeah, the best part about it is, Fana, he doesn't give a shit about getting shots.
He doesn't care about scoring. In a world where everybody cares about how many points they score, I love this kid. I think he's just. I want him on my team because he's going to do all the little things right. You're right, Rob. He's invaluable to what they do.
Mm-hmm. Zion James too.
He had some big buckets.
Yeah.
Another thing too, like
right. It's not just you, Rob. Everyone's messing it up. Sion James. Yeah, Sion James. He had a big bucket there at the end. But when Cooper went on the bench, this is something that I think Duke can learn from. Cooper went on the bench. They created some offense from a couple of steals, and they got out in transition. It was like a 13-2 run. But then they started running some offense. And it doesn't have to be all guys. Look, when your team is that talented individual, you don't have to run mind-bending stuff. But you can change sides of the floor once. And that's where you saw Tyrese Proctor. He was a little more effective because he was attacking a closeout there on the left side of the floor. So, like, that could be something where, hey, maybe I could put Cooper in that position. Or maybe I could put somebody else in, just move the defense a little bit before attacking. But a lot to take away from that. Louisville came out on fire. And for some reason, man, like, they've had spurts of great shooting. Louisville just hasn't been able to throw it in the ocean this year. And it's so strange because all those guys, wherever they came from, they were good shooters.
I have a theory on that. And it's part of the reason I really feel for Louisville fans is that I think the Corin Johnson injury is hurting them a little bit more than people realize. They don't really have a breaky down guy, right? Like they have a lot of guys that can kind of space. They have a good solid
He's been good.
He's been good, but when you think of Chucky Hepburn, you don't think, okay, I got a guy that's going to get in the paint every single time he wants and be able to kind of take a defense apart by himself. He's like a defensive guy. He'll get you into your stuff. He'll make open shots. He'll make the right reads. They don't really have that guy that can just get in the lane and mess everything up, which means that you can kind of stay home on the shooters, which means that all of the stuff that they run, it's a little bit more difficult to kind of create those open. Maybe I'm just reading too much into it, but I think that's one guy that they're missing. And like, they're down to 7 players, man. They lost 2 starters to season-ending injuries, and they still don't have a Boubacar Traore back. It's just
His arm's broken.
Yeah.
And people forget too, like they had 2 guys that came over with the intention of redshirting because they were hurt.
Mm-hmm. So
Kobe
they brought
Rogers and Ali Khalifa. So they're down to 9 players, period, for the rest of the year. Tough
they have so many
situation to
guys
be
in
in.
practice that aren't walk-ons right now. It's a tough spot to be in, and I think it hasn't gone the way they wanted it to go. But I don't think it's fair to judge anything about like Pat Kelsey or this team based off of what's happening. They lost 5 guys, man. 5
Hey,
guys.
hold on, man. Hold on. Let's also put it in perspective here, where they're coming from. Louisville fans should be thrilled that they're competing every night, and at least they're in games. So, like, they've done a fantastic job of putting together a roster that can compete every single night. Are they going to win every single night? No, they're not. But they have competed every single time, making it to the Battle for Atlantis finals. They've just dropped 3 in a row. Oklahoma is much better than everybody thought. Then they played Ole Miss at home. Ole Miss is Final Four potential good. And then they play Duke. Now you play UTEP at home. You're at Kentucky, big one. And then you start conference play. I think Louisville's very much top half of the ACC.
I agree.
Oh, they should be in this league. They should be. Here's one brief thing on like a team like Louisville. And I know that their conference hasn't performed great, but I just looked at the net and they're 62, but they've played a good schedule. One big thing to people, and we brought it up last week, whoever your team is, don't overreact. Even unless you're in like the top 15, even then, like Maryland's 13th today in the net, don't overreact to your net today. There's still a lot of regulation that has to happen with that metric and with other metrics throughout the next 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks for us to truly understand where quadrants and how many Q1, Q2 wins. Like, it's too early to be tracking all of that. Yes, there are teams that have helped themselves greatly. There are others who haven't helped themselves enough. But 2 years ago, Rutgers made the NCAA tournament with a net of 77. So before you get so overreactionary, and I know that's our job here on this show, but like, people were saying last night, oh, Louisville, they're cooked, or they're this, they're this, they're that. Like, no, they're not. It's a long season. And if Louisville finishes in the top 4 or 5 of the ACC, they may have a case. They may have a case on Selection Sunday. So just saying, like, let things still play out, folks. There's a long way to go. It's been an amazing 5 weeks. But some teams, a team like Louisville is going to be better in late January than they are now. You just know that they will be.
Mm-hmm.
If they stay healthy.
Tio, is Kansas cooked?
No. Cooked.
Got smacked at Creighton. They get smacked, made a comeback, but they got beat pretty good at Missouri.
Define cooked.
Define cooked. What's
that
that mean?
Like what do you mean? Like,
I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. That's what I wrote down on the rundown. Is Kansas?
There's no specifics here.
Are they lost to number 1 team in the country, loses 2 games in a week to unranked opponents? How worried should you be about Kansas? I feel like the concerns that we had are pretty legitimate. Like, you go back, you watch that Missouri game, look how much space they have in the paint. Look how often Missouri is just saying, I don't give a shit about that shooter. I don't give a shit about him. I don't give a shit about him. Putting 3 bodies in front of the rim when you run your pick and roll. What are you going to do? There's no space. I think it's officially a concern for me.
Rivalry games are weird, and the Border War is a big time rivalry. Mizzou played great. They knocked down shots. Tamar Bates was awesome. I gave him my toast of the night last night. I'm not necessarily super worried about Kansas because I don't think that they're going to turn the ball over like they have, especially against Mizzou. I think they ended up with 22?
That was crazy.
That doesn't happen. Go Fanta. Hold on. Let me clear the floor. Fanta's fired up. Go Fanta. Go.
Okay, they're not cooked, but I am worried about them. They're not a national championship team today. In fact, they're far from it. And here's why. They can't shoot. So DeJuan Harris, the last 2 games, is 11 for 35 from the floor. 11? He's the point guard of the team. He's taken 35 shots. 35 in 2 games. AJ Storr, last 2 games, 5 for 20. Zeke Mayo, beautiful magic act in Missouri yesterday. Couldn't find him. Disappeared out of thin air. Their transfer class has not lived up to expectation. And Hunter Dickinson's an All-American player. He is not an All-American defender.
No.
and they lack elite rim protection. This is a team that is not a top 10 team right now. They're not playing well. And AJ Storr, Bill Self even lit a fire under him yesterday. I was looking at Self's post-game comments. He pretty much said AJ Storr hasn't been good enough. Now, when you're getting paid, you can say that about your players. And it was interesting to hear Self say that. You could just tell, guys, sometimes there's a reason why certain kids are making 3 or 4 stops in as many years, for a variety of reasons. Nothing against the kids, just the reality of the situation. Sometimes kids get unlocked at their 3rd or 4th stop. Other times it just doesn't pan out. Does that mean Kansas is dead? No. But in comparison to our original expectations, my problem with Kansas is this. I thought against Creighton, I thought they just kind of quit. They really never punched a heavy punch against a Creighton team was coming in struggling. And then against Missouri, I got the same types of sentiments. I thought they put up a little bit of a fight. They got back within 9, but it wasn't happening. I don't like the attitude of this team. I don't sense a leader on this team. I don't know who the leader is on this team. And I do wonder, is Hunter Dickinson just a heavily productive player, but not ultimately a champion? Zach, I
think that there's sorry to cut you off. I think that there's a little bit of that with it, right? When you have a kind of slow-footed 7-footer that you're running everything around, it kind of causes you issues offensively. And when you don't have a roster that accentuates that player's skills, then you're not getting the best out of Hunter offensively while also putting him in situations where you're asking him to do more defending than he should be doing, if that makes sense. I think that AJ Storr is not the right fit for he's more of a slasher than a shooter. If you took AJ Storr off of this roster and just put, Ryan Conwell on this roster, I think that it would look a lot different because you would have a guy that's built to shoot and built to space as opposed to built to kind of put the ball on the floor and find a way to get to the rim, if that makes sense. The Creighton one, I'm a little bit forgiving of because, one, I think Creighton, when they had Pop Isaacs, it sucks that he's out for the year, but when they had him, they were a top 10 to 12 kind of a team. When he got going, and they are you put Kalkbrenner on Hunter Dickinson and you just chase people like that. That is, they are a really good matchup and they are better than what their record has been this season. So I think that's part of it.
By the way, if Creighton's bubbly, the fact they can say they won that game, that was man, because they might be bubbling. And they might be right around that bubble, but that's a big win for them. Big feather in the cap.
T.O., I'll let you go now, man. I think that one, it's a great win for Missouri. They did a really good job forcing turnovers. Kansas looks so confused, but I just think that this is kind of a flawed roster that Kansas has. Your 3 best players can't shoot.
I'll be honest. The only one that I was a little nervous about when they signed him was David Coit, and he just small guards like that. Gosh, it's hard. It's really hard when you're going up against legitimate size. And hey, Mizzou has legitimate size, and they have defensive pieces. Hunter Dickinson, to me, guys, he just kind of is what he is. We figured him out, and other teams have figured him out. And if he's not going to be a leader and a communicator back there at the 5 spot and be poor, and be poor on the defensive end, that's a real problem. He's going to have to pick that up, or it's just going to be much of the same of what we've been getting over the past few years from him.
Yep. All right. I want to ask you guys about Cam Jones. I want to ask you about UConn's bounce back, and we got to let T.O. celebrate the fact that he may have just accidentally predicted the actual Big Ten champion out of nowhere, and we'll do that right after this break. Now that the college basketball season is in full swing, you need to make sure that you have access to the best betting tool on the market, the Rhythm app. Spelled RITHMM, is a data-backed app that uses AI and analytics to identify inefficiencies in betting lines and the player prop market that will allow you, the user, to profit. You can create customized, analytics-driven betting models tailored to your personal preferences as a bettor. Users have access to up-to-the-second against-the-spread data. And if you're like me and you understand pictures better than numbers on a screen, Rhythm's internal trend analysis provides you with the kind of graphs that will allow you to evaluate past results and project future performance in a visual way. Every Division I college basketball team is included in the Rhythm's metrics. Free subscribers to the Field of 68 Daily will get 25% off for a Rhythm subscription. Use the QR code on the screen to sign up or download. All right, Fana, I'm going to you on this one, man. Cam Jones has been the best player in college basketball this season. He had 32 points and 6 assists in the win over Wisconsin. He obviously had that triple-double against, was that Purdue? He had triple-double against Purdue, right?
Yep, against Purdue.
Here's my question for you. Is there enough around him for Marquette to truly be a Final Four contender? Or is this something where you get someone that could take Cam out of the game and they don't have enough beside him?
No, they have enough. They have enough because it's really hard to just take him out of the game because of his passing ability. Shaka Smart told us at Big East Media Day, you're about to see how great of a passer Cam Jones is. And I got to be honest with you, the entire room was like, really? And he was right. Guess what? He was as correct as he's ever been. 32 points, 6 assists, not a single turnover against Wisconsin's defense on Saturday.
Ridiculous.
32, not a single mistake in the game.
He's ridiculous.
His ability to glide. He glides in the lane. He's like a gazelle. He's just got this skill set that makes him so elusive. And he's not the tallest guard by any standpoint, but he still figures out a way to finish and get fouled and get to the line. His shooting is outstanding. Iowa State was great defensively on him. No question, Joe. Chase Ross was out for the down the stretch in that game. You'll be hard-pressed to find. Nobody beat Iowa State at their place last year. Probably won't even – it probably won't happen this year either. Like, they're one of the best home teams in the country. But what we're watching right now is nothing short of amazing. Now, they're a team that they can't have, like, multiple – they already are dealing with some injuries, but they haven't – remember, they haven't gotten Sean Jones back. And if you remember Sean Jones pre-injury, he was – T.O., you remember him well because you did his games. He's an energizer bunny in the backcourt for him, too, that can score the ball because of his speed. Chase Ross keeps getting better. Like he's been
awesome.
Ross and Stevie Mitchell are two of the best defensive guards in college basketball. The key for Marquette to make a Final Four is whether or not they get 4 games of consistent David Joplin. If David Joplin gives them consistency from the stretch 4 slot and Ben Gold hits a couple of shots, keep an eye on Demarius Owens and Royce Parham. I think Parham just keeps getting better, and Owens is
and
too.
They're high on Owens. Oof.
This is a situation at Marquette that could prove to be really fun and really awesome. And this is a team that is the clear front runner in the Big East right now. And they're in for a year where they might only lose 3 or 4 league games, if that. They are that good. They're that special. And yes, Rob, they're a Final Four contender because they have the best player today. And if you want to argue Janai Broom's the best, fine. Number 2 player in Cam Jones. And the reason why Jones has a slight edge over Broom is because he's a guard and he's going to always have the ball in his hands.
Tio, let me ask you a question about, because I think it's really interesting if you look at Shaka's career after leaving Texas, right? I feel like Marquette is a much better fit from what you expect from him as a coach in terms of, I heard you say this last night on the broadcast talking about Rick Barnes, and I think it connects there as well. You don't have to win the offseason at Marquette. You got to win during the season, right? It's not about the recruiting classes. It's not about McDonald's All-American. It's not about bringing in the most talent you can. Bring in the guys that fit and have them play the way that you want to play and win games, and that's all that matters. Works for Rick Barnes at Tennessee after leaving Texas. It works for Shaka Smart and Marquette after leaving Texas.
Yeah, and you look, and he's even redshirting players. Like Caden Hamilton redshirted last year, and they're redshirting all Amadou this year. Like the luxury to be able to do that and to get the right guy to do that. Yeah, that helps. That certainly helps.
They have a lot. Guess what? The best teams with the best money don't advertise it.
It's a fact. That's a fact. Marquette has a lot. Marquette had the biggest basketball recruiting budget in the country for like a long time. Might still have it. I don't know that for a fact, but I do know that it was there for a long time. They were the
budget in the sport. Top 10 budget in the
Yeah,
sport,
they had,
folks. You would not
but for a long time they were number one. Like it was a point of bragging for that. So like it's basketball facility, and people understand basketball factory, excuse me. People understand like, hey, sometimes it's going to take a little time to develop, but we're going to be patient. We're going to let our coaches do what they're going to do. And same as happened with Rick Barnes. He's got some guys that at first glance you're just like, well, I don't know if that's going to work, but they fit him. Same things happen with Shaka. And he's been able to continue developing some of these guys. Like the development of Chase Ross has been awesome to see. Like you always knew like he was this big time athlete. You probably like he's a DK Metcalf type athlete. Like he could play wide receiver in the NFL. I firmly freaking believe that. He looks like him. Like he's just jacked, super long arms, bouncy as all hell, but he's worked on his game and they've continued to get better and better and better. Whenever you put those athletes all together, like it makes for an unbelievable product. And like Ben Gold's finally starting to catch up a little bit. He started off slow, starting to catch up more and more. And because people are starting to understand where Cam's going to find you, the offense is starting to hum even more better. And, they lost one game at Iowa State. I love what you said, Fanti. Not many people are going to win there. Otts does a great job there. Not many people are going to win there. Like, Marquette's the best team in the Big East right now.
How far, Fanta, is UConn and St. John's? I don't think I quite have Creighton there right now. Let's see what they are without Pop Isaacs. How far off are UConn and St. John's? St. John's obviously bounced back. They got the win over Kansas State. Shout out to Rick Pitino with the Louis Carnesecca sweater. That was awesome. I love that. And then UConn, they got the win over Baylor at home, comeback win, and then go into Texas and kind of beat the brakes off Texas.
Not far off, because I really do believe in St. John's, and I do believe in Connecticut, the version of Connecticut we saw this past week. Let's talk about St. John's. If they don't choke the game against Baylor and they win that game, we are seeing them in a totally different light right now, fellas. We really are. Because I don't think then you lose back-to-back to Tennessee and Georgia. I think you lose to Tennessee, and I think you would have felt better about yourself. You would have like forced yourself to win the game over Georgia, but they lost. That team, that St. John's team, is extremely talented. They're really deep too. RJ Lewis, Davon Smith, Kadari Richmond, backcourt. But the key cog to the Big East race is Zuby Ejiofor. When Zuby Ejiofor plays the way he did Saturday against Kansas State, who is struggling and not good, but he had 28 and 13. I don't care who you scored against at the high major level. He had 28 points and 13 rebounds. This is a guy who Bill Self told Rick Pitino, you'll get a good defender. He hustles. He plays hard, but he's not a great offensive player. Pitino sends video reels of Zuby and individuals to Self and says, look at him now, in a joking way, but it's great, in a way of like, hey, look what happened. That's a team that is really scary and can beat Marquette, UConn, and it's going to beat teams in the Big East like a drum because of how talented that they are. Connecticut's fascinating. Last year they were so incredibly dominant. I know you love being 37-3, Rob, but I think this season's kind of like I'm more interested now by UConn in their season arc in general.
I said this the other
what they did in Maui, because it's like now you want to see like Texas didn't run anything. Their offense was way too pedestrian, and there's just not a lot of intricacy. And UConn was able to run their stuff, but like I think the upside with UConn, we don't know the definitive answer on that, and that's what makes this season fun if you're a Husky fan.
Yeah, and it's also I said this the other day. You have the next wave of great UConn players right here, and they're not there yet. This is what UConn was in 2021 when you could kind of see it coming a little bit with Jordan Hawkins as a freshman. You could see it a little bit with Adama Sanogo, right? And you can see it with some of these guys, right? Like Solo Ball is probably a year away from being an All-American kind of a guy, but he's pretty good right now, right? Liam McNeely won't be here for more than a year. But some like Jalen Stewart and Jaden Ross, like you could see flashes from those guys, but they're not quite there yet. So it's a building process and it's a learning curve. And I think this Gonzaga game is going to be a real test simply because the issue's been defense for UConn this year. Like offensively, they're fine. They're going to find a way to be able to score enough. I'm not worried about that. Texas didn't run anything. Like they were just like, all right, we're going to go ISO for Arthur Kluman. Now we're going to go ISO for Trey Johnson. Now we're going to go ISO for Tremont Mark. And UConn has guys that are good enough where they can make you take hard twos, and that's all you need to really be able to do. Gonzaga is going to move that ball around. They're going to run their flow. They're going to put you in ball screens. They're going to make you get into rotation. They got shooters everywhere. That's going to be the real test for, like, okay, is UConn like top 20-ish kind of good? Is this a team that can get to the tournament, win a game? Is this team Final Four upside? Like, we're going to see it. Like, what they do defensively against Gonzaga, I think, is the key.
So quickly on the Big East, you're right. Creighton's not at that level, and without Pop Isaacs, it's going to take time. Nightmare setup for the Blue Jays that they have to go to Tuscaloosa on Saturday. You know, you go into the game like, obviously you're playing. I don't want to say you're playing with house money because you're not, but like nobody's expecting you to win that game, and it's a game that you schedule. There's not a lot of harm in scheduling it, but they're in deep waters there, having to go to Alabama. In the Big East, it's an important week for a couple of teams. At some point, Xavier has to move the needle. Xavier is 7-2, but they just lost to TCU this past week. Not a good performance. Mm-hmm. They're at Cincinnati Saturday. I don't think there's been a bigger Xavier-Cincinnati game in several years from the standpoint of urgency, because you guys and I know this. If Cincinnati wins, all right, Bearcat fans can breathe. They just won for the first time in 6 meetings against Xavier. Also, you know, Cincinnati recovers from a loss to Villanova this past week. If Xavier loses, then it's like, all right, is this Xavier team, did we overvalue them in the preseason? Are they going to be an NIT team again? The other side of it is, if Xavier wins, it's a move the needle win. But if Cincinnati loses, we're going to start to ask questions about Wes Miller. So that is a critical game for the Xavier Musketeers. There's also another critical game in this league Saturday, and it's Butler facing Wisconsin in Indianapolis. Mm-hmm. Critical for both teams. If Butler wants to start to make a case of something in this season, they've already beaten Mississippi State by double digits. They beat Northwestern on a neutral. They beat SMU. If Butler owns a win on a neutral, game is downtown Indy, it will go as a neutral game, whether you like it or not, on Saturday. If they beat Wisconsin on a neutral, then the Bulldogs all of a sudden are on the radar. Critical week for a couple of those teams.
Yeah, I think Butler's already, at least for me, they're on my radar for NCAA tournament potential. T.O., I got to go to you on this one, man, because the start of the season, you said that Michigan State was the best team in the Big Ten. I firmly believe that there is no best team in the Big Ten right now, that there are about 8 or 9 teams that are all somewhere between good and really good, and I'm not really sure who is in what category yet. But how do you kind of parse through this, and what have you seen out of the Spartans so far this year that would maybe justify the fact that you had them as the number 1 team in the country heading into the season?
Them dudes guard and them dudes board. So not only do they have a terrific defense, but they're finishing possessions. One of the offensive rebounding percentage defensively, I think they're 6th in the country. They just don't give you extra opportunities. So sometimes when they go through some of these lulls offensively and they can't hit shots, and they're shooting the ball not very well from 3. But because they're guarding,
That's putting it kindly.
Yeah, they can't throw it in the ocean with their feet in water. So like it's one of those things where they're keeping themselves in there by just doing Izzo stuff, playing tough, playing physical, defense, run, and try to find some easier looks. Like their offense, outside of shooting, their offense has been pretty good. They just haven't been able to hit threes. They've still found opportunities for themselves because they're athletic and they're fast. So imagine if Michigan State starts shooting threes well. Could happen.
Mm-hmm.
It could happen. You know, I like the fact that they returned so many pieces. You looked at some of their players. Jaden Akins has been what we thought he could be. Not throwing it in the ocean. Outside of that, he's been a pretty good player. You look up and down. I love that you can throw in Cohen Carr. Go, I guess, quote unquote small, but he's so athletic. He plays like he's 6'10", so it's like okay. They just kind of are what they are. You know what you're getting into. They're freaking tough, and they could win that league.
Mm-hmm. Finn, I know you wanted to talk about Michigan and Danny Wolf.
Love Danny Wolf.
Oh, man. I think
he'll play in the NBA.
This was such a home run hire.
He'll play in the NBA.
Danny Wolf and Vlad Golden, and what they've done, I mean, they combined for 44 in the win over Wisconsin. They controlled the game. And because of the way Dusty designs his offense, the way that they can ball screen and slip to the hoop and the pressure that they can put on you, here's the thing about Michigan. The 2 wins this past week, they shot 10 for 44 from 3, 10 for 45 from 3. Think about that, guys. They scored 85 against Iowa, and they were terrible from three-point land. So what happens when Roddy Gale and Trey Donaldson are knocking down threes? I talked with Sean Miller last night. He said he thinks Michigan's the best team in the Big Ten. He thinks that they are great. Obviously, he got blown out by them. I've watched three of Michigan's games in their entirety. What a game changer of a hire. What a program-changing hire. And I don't think that this is like a case that we've seen when certain mid-major coaches make a beautiful run and then they don't pan out at the high major level. I just think Dusty May is that good of a coach. And Rob, you've seen it up close, spending time with him. The stuff they run, the detail they play with, this is a game-changing thing for Ann Arbor. I think it's better for the Big Ten when Michigan is recognizable. Certainly better for the Big Ten when Michigan State is playing good ball. And both those teams are, quick note on the Big Ten. They own the second most wins in college basketball against Quadrant 1 as a league with 16. The SEC has 19. The Big Ten has 16. The ACC actually comes in at third most with 11. The Big 12's record against Quadrant 1 is 10-24. Big 12 doesn't have a ton of great wins here this year to start the season, even though we respect the hell out of that league. Just saying that the numbers look, got to read the numbers too. Michigan is the real deal. And the Big Ten is deep with talent. UCLA, Oregon, hell of a game last night. What a win for Mick Cronin. Dylan Andrews banks in a three. And
Bank was open on a Sunday in Oregon.
I look at UCLA, guys. That's a team. They hidden in the portal well. They've won 7 in a row. But Oregon, I didn't drop them much. I still think they're a damn good basketball team. Aaron Bradshaw comes back to Ohio State. They'll end up being okay. And guys, don't sleep on the Terps. Maryland almost, they were right in it with Purdue. Derek Queen is king.
Derek Queen's awesome.
Derek Queen is king.
He is awesome.
Old school.
He is awesome.
He is old school.
I really like that Maryland team. Really,
Al Jefferson.
Yeah, they play a couple of big guys together, and Julian Reese and Derek Queen. Jacoby Gillespie is a guy that can create some space. I feel sometimes Willard kind of lets them go a little bit too much. He's trying to play with a little bit of freedom. It's all right, guys, go make something happen. Sometimes I kind of wish there would be a little bit more structure to what they do. But yeah, they're really good. Are you worried about Purdue at all? I go back and forth on them because one, Braden Smith was unbelievable on
Dude,
Sunday.
that little sucker is quicker than a wet fart.
He is really good.
Wow.
Trey Kaufman-Renn, I think, has been really effective this season. But you look at what's happened to them against Penn State, it was the exact same thing that happened against Marquette. You put a little ball pressure on them. They got one guy that can kind of create your offense, and if you can kind of shut that valve off, they're kind of limited, and they don't really have any rim protection. I think Trey Kaufman-Renn has one block all season long. I don't know. I go back and forth on them. Where do you stand on Purdue, T.O.?
I think they are what they are. Their upside's not national championship game like it was last year, but they could win a game or two in the NCAA tournament, maybe even play in the second weekend. I consider that a good year. I don't know that, in today's college game, and I mean this, I think big wings can win you a national championship. Big wings. I think you need a solid point guard, but you also need you really need a big that can just muck it up and be in there. You look last year, Donovan Clingan, year before, Sonogo and company. You even keep going back and back.
David McCormick in 2022.
You got to have those guys. You got to have that guy. That he doesn't have to be the best player, but you have to have that guy. Trey Kaufman-Renn's been very, very good and a pleasant surprise. Is he that guy? To be determined. I'm not overly worried, but at the same time, secondary ball handler, Fletcher Lawyer can do that.
Oh boy,
I'm not overly worried, but defensively they have to be a little bit better.
Yeah, but Trey Kaufman-Renn's evolution's been fantastic. When Miles Colvin gets going, handling ball pressure is obviously the concerning piece. But I'll tell you what, Penn State looks like a top 30 to 35 team right now. I mean, shout out to Mike Rhodes. That performance by Penn State to beat Purdue the way they did. Look out for Ace Baldwin, who right now is one of the best point guards in the country and has been for a while. And then they really hit it well in the transfer portal with a couple of the guys that they've brought in. I mean, you look at that team, and Yannick Conan Niederhauser has turned out to be a very nice
I knew he was going to be good too.
13 per game coming over from Northern Illinois. I really like his game. Zach Kick's averaging over 13 per game for this team. A guy who is in his second year with the program. That's the other thing about Rhodes. He brought in transfers. He brought in Puff Johnson as well. They have a couple of guys who
Freddie DeLeon the fifth, man. Come on.
DeLeon, who comes over from Tennessee. Like a lot of really good pieces for this team. And in the Big Ten, that says a lot about Mike Rhodes and what he's doing in year 2 on that job. Because when he got hired, people were wondering, is this going to be able to carry over for Micah Shrewsbury? And it is. So, I still trust Illinois. I'm not worried about them after the loss to Northwestern. I think what Chris Collins continues to do is pretty admirable. Like, he lost Boo Buie, and Northwestern just keeps fighting, guys. Brooks Barnheiser has an unlimited motor. Nick Martinelli's become a different player. The Big Ten is stacked with storylines and stacked with really good basketball.
Did I tell you guys what Trevor called Northwestern?
What?
The YMCA club of Evanston.
Well, that was insulting because
but that was after Illinois. That was after Illinois went to Illinois. Trevor's an Illinois alum, which I thought was pretty funny.
Can
I state my case?
Yakuchonis, I love. Wow. Yeah. I am impressed by him. And Illinois beats Tennessee this Saturday.
Ooh, spicy.
That's real spicy, and I'm not sure I'm with that one. I'm not sure I'm with that one. I think
games in Champaign.
I think I don't that toughness travels, dude.
AP Top 25 just came out. Duke is ranked ahead of Kentucky. What's that fan discourse going to look like?
I don't know. It's going to be interesting. Let's. I think, and I've stood by this. The Big Ten's fine.
It's a good league.
It's a good league.
Come on,
it's a good league. Let's not start throwing that league in there with the SEC and the top level talent there. Like, there's a lot of good teams. There's not a whole lot of that past that. It's like,
yeah, look, they have like 12 tournament teams, and not a single one of them I would pick to be like more than the Sweet 16. And that's where I'm at with it. They got a bunch of really, really good teams.
That's where I'm at.
Probably going to have like
same old thing.
It's going to be like 8 teams that finish within 14-6 and 12-8 at the top of the conference.
Yeah, I've had that opinion pretty much the entire season. Nothing's changed it.
Can I state my case? Can I state my case for who?
Look at the recent comment on the Restream. I'm insulted.
What happened?
I am not a Tennessee fader. I've been the biggest Tennessee fan there is.
Get him, Coop. Get him, Coop. Don't let him get away with anything. Get him, Coop.
Let him know, Coop. Let him know. I'm going to state my case for why Purdue is going to win the Big Ten regular season title again, and I want you guys to respond, and then we're going to get out of here. Want it? This is a long and detailed argument.
What's it?
For why Purdue is going to win the Big Ten.
Well, a guy just commented in all caps and said, friendly reminder, Rob said Michigan would finish 10th in the Big Ten. Great analysis, bro. You're the best.
He just broed you.
Shawn Michael, yeah.
You just got broed by Shawn Michael.
He didn't say you're the best. He said you're the Epst. You're the Epst. You're the Epst, Sean.
And he goes, Michigan's now the betting favorite to win the Big Ten. So why aren't you on Michigan, man? Why are you on Purdue?
Yeah.
Mackey Arena.
Oh.
Fair.
They're going to win 10 games at home.
Wow.
And all they got to do is split their road games, and they go 15-5, and 15-5 will win the Big Ten this year.
Wow.
Yes. I agree with that. I agree with that.
Yeah, it's the same reason why you always pick Kansas to win the Big 12 regular season title. We got
the zone. Hey, momentum's getting bigger in the zone.
Wait.
Honestly, I could see Michigan State doing it. I just think Purdue's a better team than
If that happens, everybody who talked crap to me can just go.
Yeah. I honestly, I'm kind of at the point now where I would absolutely love to see Michigan State win the Big Ten just for T.O.'s victory laps.
Oh,
that's what I'm rooting for.
I'm a big, and you guys have known this now. Like, I'm a big victory lap guy. I'll take
it. Yeah, you are.
Hey,
you see the receipts.
Wait a minute. Tom Izzo 30th season. That would be pretty magical if he won.
Yeah, it would.
Kentucky Scott submits a chat message and says, Duke always gets its backside massaged, just like they never travel for rounds 1 and 2.
Yeah.
I love Kentucky fans and just the insanity.
Yeah.
They are loving life right now too, man. There is nobody happier right now than the Kentucky fan in your life. They are living the dream.
Yeah,
Can you imagine? I mean, now this just revs up when Cal returns there.
They're going to beat him by 50.
Oh, come on.
I don't know. 50. I don't know about 50. I don't know about 50.
You think John's?
Well, not no. I don't think it's a game. I think
Rob Doster thinks Calipari's lost his fastball. That's what you're telling me.
Well,
I think his fastball's been lost. I think he lost his fastball.
It was not. It wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't just now. Like, there's a reason why this came to an end. It's for a greater discussion. But like, if you're an Arkansas fan right now, you are panicking because in that league, look at Alabama and Auburn. Like, you got to be if you're Arkansas.
They're 7-2.
Huh?
They're 7-2.
They got buried by Illinois, man. They got a big game tomorrow. They're at the Garden tomorrow night against Michigan.
They better be.
Are we ready to bury Michigan if Arkansas wins that one?
If Arkansas wins that one, then we'll never see Shawn Michael again. Shawn Michael will never show up in the YouTube comments ever again. He'll be gone forever. But I don't want that. I want Michigan to win. It's a lot more fun to hate on Calipari than it is to hate on Michigan. Listen,
shout out Archie Miller.
Hell yeah.
Arch. Yeah, Arch.
King of Rhode Island. You guys saw my tweet?
9-0. King of Rhode Island.
Yeah, he is. King of Rhode Island.
I remember Fanta. I remember when you did a Big East Spaces and our old friend the Lumpy Dumper came on.
Lumpy.
And you were talking about the game, and he said it's going to be a home game for Providence.
Yeah, Lumpy.
Right? Well, does that mean that since Rhode Island is like 78th in the net right now, does that go down as a quad 3 loss since it was a home game for the Friars? Fryer.
By the way, one thing on PC, okay? Very, 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 very quiet. Twitter sector tomorrow night that only guys like diehards like Doster will be invested in. Tomorrow, where's PC at? Anybody know? Anybody know where they're at tomorrow night?
We got the Bonnies tomorrow. Who do they got?
Big East opener at Wintrust.
Oh, yeah, big game in Chicago. Big game in Chicago.
Yes.
So I'm going to call it right now on this pod because this is the last thing I'm going to say because we've got an hour 17. This week, DePaul, they are 7-1. They've got Providence at home. And they've got
look for the people that are listening to the audio version of this, like someone please go check on Shawn Michael. He just said, I'm unsalted. You are a Michigan hater. Michigan the typos like Sean, are we drunk right now? Like it's
tough Monday.
It's 1 o'clock on a Monday.
DePaul, tough Monday. DePaul.
You know what?
If DePaul beats Providence this week and Wichita State on Saturday, and they're 9-1, and they're 9-1, DePaul will get a segment on next Monday's podcast.
Yeah, they will.
Yes, we'll bring. Hold on.
If they're 9-1.
Chris Holtman's coming on the show. Chris Holtman. Oh, there you go.
Oh, he's got to
go. Right. We got to run. The missus is calling.
All right.
Appreciate everyone being here. We'll be back next Monday with another episode of the DTF podcast.